Told you I was coming back to play some traditional tunes, so let's see what I can muster up. But can I ask where you're all from? Just I like to work this one out just in case I offend anyone and I kind of watch what way the glasses are coming at me from, you know? Predominantly States, yeah?
States, Canada, Wisconsin, out of Canada.
Canadians.
5 Canadians.
5 Canadians.
California.
Singapore.
Yeah. Any Aussies?
Just our two right here.
Just a two minute. Oh, it's just Amy. Alright, there we are. Okay. I'll see Aussie. Aye, let's see what I can muster up for you. traditional Highland tunes. Don't ever ask me when Yankee Doodle Dandy, when the Saints, Smoke on the Water, or even Thunderstruck became a traditional Highland tune, because tonight will be the answer you will all receive. There were two. The very first, of course, was Amazing Grace. The very last one, the good old Scotland the Brave. Let me get rid of the pipes and let me deliver Tam O'Shanter. Give it a good hard shot. Before I commence, can anybody tell me before I commence what a Tam O'Shanter is? It's a hat. Well done, Smarty Pants. Now, there's no prizes for guessing correctly, alright? But well done, it is a hat, yes. A Tam, a Tammy, a Tam O'Shanter, or in the army it's referred to as a TOS, Tam O'Shanter. Burns makes reference to it in his poem with a simple line where he says, holding fast his good blue bonnet. And in English that translates back to holding tight his good blue hat. Ladies and gentlemen, Tam O'Shanter in its entirety, if I was to deliver it to you in its entirety, is about 30 minutes long. Wow. It contains much of these old words that you don't understand. You'll therefore be extremely glad to know I am not about to subject you to 30 minutes of talking sheer utter nonsense to you. Because all you'll do is you'll ask Amy to ensure that that coach outside is running so you can all get the hell out of here and as far away from this babbling Scotsman as you possibly can do. But I want you, before you leave, to experience a bit about Tam O'Shanter and to hear a little bit more about the great man that is Robert Burns. So I'm going to commence by what I said earlier. I'm giving you an English translation, telling you how Robert Burns came to write it, what he based it on, etc. And then we'll finish up with the key dates in the great man's life, okay? So, Robert Burns penned and edited that epic narrative poem Tam O'Shanter whilst he was residing on Ellisland Farm in the Scottish border town of Dumfries, about 2 decades after leaving his native Alloway in Ayrshire. Now he did so with the memory of his childhood and the familiar places that he knew in his youth growing up, at the very forefront of his mind, all of which would culminate in Tam O'Shanter. Now Robert himself had met with the antiquarian and author Captain Francis Grose. Grose was about to publish the second volume of his Antiquities of Scotland when Burns suggested to him that he should include a piece on Alloway's old haunted church in the book. Now he agreed, but on the condition that Robert Burns furnish him with a supernatural tale in order to accompany the delineation of the old haunted church. Both men shook, agreed their terms, they parted and set about work. Robert returned to Ellisland, the farm that he built up on the banks of the River Nith. Beautiful setting, it really is, still stands today. And he set about walking along the banks of the Nith. That's where he was most inspired. And he would sit down and pen away. So he based this poem upon an Ayrshire farmer who was very partial to a drink. Aye, a 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10. He was a hardened, good old Scottish drinker. On that particular date was a market day, and he'd gone off to trade in cattle or other farming wares, but instead of going home like every good husband should do, he went to the pub. And there he sat till the wee small hours of the morning, getting foon unca happy, as the poem states. Now that's really drunk and very happy to do and die. And while he's there, he's not giving much thought to his darling wife. She's at home, waiting for him coming in, thinking he's been working hard all day. I'll have a meal on the table for him coming in, but it's all in vain. He's getting drunk with his friends while she's at home, getting angrier and angrier and angrier. Never a good mix. Does that sound familiar with that cheeky wee laugh there? I've got my eyes on you, boy. That's
so true.
You always see the quiet ones are the worst, don't they? Sat here, never mutter the word, and as soon as I mention that, wee cheeky laughs, yeah, I've got you. That's it for me. So, when he leaves, after befriending the landlady, the sod that he is, he starts to befriend the landlady, and he leaves There's an almighty storm brewing outside. Thunder, lightning, rain, wind. It's gruesome. But he gets upon his trusty horse, as drunk as a skunk, and he starts riding through the streets of Alloway. He's singing songs to himself as he goes. Aye, and he's hudding fast his gid blue bonnet so it doesn't blow away in the storm. Now, as he approaches the local haunted church, he can see it's all lit up. So he gets off the horse, he stands in the darkness out of the light, where nobody can see him, and there he witnesses the festivities unfold before his eyes. There are warlocks and witches. Aye, and they're dancing. In the corner is the devil, playing the bagpipes. But there's one of the witches. He said she took his eye. She was particularly bonny looking. I don't know about any of you, but I've never seen a bonny looking witch. They've all been hell of a ugly looking things with big hook noses, lots on their chins with big whiskers worse than mine, pointy hats and crooked teeth. Yuck. Sounds like a right stunner, eh? Anyway, it turns my stomach. But he thought she was good looking, and he wanted to let her know he was watching. So he waited for an opportune moment in the proceedings. He cupped his hands round his mouth and he shouted, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" Cutty Sark, you'll recognise as a whisky or indeed a sailing ship, yeah? Yeah. Well, the Cutty Sark actually, Burns, as you will have worked out, wrote in 2 languages. The first being his native tongue, Scots. That's the words you don't understand. He also wrote in English the words you do understand. So, yeah, that's why a lot of Burns's poetry you'll see come and go. You think, I'm following it. Bugger, where's he going now? You know, so it floats in and out. But he married both those languages together in a way which nobody before or after him has ever managed to do. And by doing so, he's kept the tradition of the old Scots alive. Otherwise, I wouldn't be stood here talking to you about Robert Burns this evening. So the Cutty Sark in the old Scots language back to English simply translates as a short skirt or undergarment. Most definitely what caught his eyes. Now, at that point, the lights went out. He knew it was time to get out of there. So he got back on the horse. Fiercely he rode to get away. This time the witches were lunging, shouting obscenities, trying to catch at him, but he was too quick. He was a step ahead of them all the way. He knew he had to cross the River Doon, the river that flows through the centre of his native Alloway in Ayrshire. He knew if he crossed the river he'd be safe. He'd get to the other side, the witches will cease on the banks. Job's a good un home and dry. Well, so he thought, didn't he? Bloody fool that he is. Just as the horse rode to the bridge, she leapt to take the brow, and at the same time the witch lunged after Tam, but instead of catching him, she yanked the horse's tail off. Left the poor horse with just a stump. Now he got to the other side and he thought that was scary. But let me assure you, it wasn't as scary as what was waiting behind the door when he got home. So, in essence, Tam O'Shanter has just been delivered to you. Hopefully that's painted the picture and you can follow the key verses as I am now about to deliver them in their natural form. I'll apologise if I get carried away, I sometimes do. When Chapman Billies leave the city, ach and drouthy neighbours meet. As market days are wearing late, and folk begin to tack the gate, while we sit boozing at the nappy, getting full and unhappy. We think no, and the Langscott smiles. The mossies, the waters, the slaps and stiles that lie atween us and our hames, where sits your sulking, sullen dames, gathering their brows like gathering storm, ach and nursing their wrath to keep it warm. This truthful and honest Tam O'Shanter, as he for air a nicht that canter, all there whom their attune surpasses, for honest men, ach and bonny lassies. Oh, Tam, had thou but been so wise as to night ain wife Kate's advice. She told you well you were a skellum,
blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, that fae November till October. A market day, you werena sober. But ilka melder with a miller you sat as lang as thou hadst siller, that every nag was caught a shoon, the smith and thee get roaring foon, and at the Lord's house, even on a Sunday. Shame upon you. You drank with Kirsten Jean till Monday. She prophesied that later soon you'd be found deep drowned in Doon, or catched by warlocks by the Mirk, by Alloway's old haunted kirk. Weel done, Cutty Sark! Aye, in an instant all was dark, and scarcely had he Maggie rallied when out the hellish legion sallied, as bees buzz out with angry fyke, and plundering herds assail their bike. As up in pussy's mortal foes, when pop she starts before their nose, as eager runs the market crowd, when catch the thief resounds aloud. So Maggie runs, the witches follow, with many an eldrich skreech and hollow. You'll get thy fill. In hell, they'll roast you like a hern. In vain, thy Kate awaits thy coming. Kate soon will be a woeful woman, but do thy speedy utmost make. I can win the key stain o' the brig. There at them, thy tail may toss. Run and stream the Dearn across. Ere the key stain she could make, the fiend a tail she had to shake. For Nanny, far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie pressed, she flew at Tam with furious ettle. But little was she Maggie's mettle. A spring brought off her master hail, and left behind her ain great tail. A garland caught her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Now who this tale of truth shall read, ilk man and mother's son, tak heed. When ere to drink you're inclined, over the Cutty Sarks are in your minds. Think, you may buy the joys o'er dear. Remember, Tam O'Shanter's mare. I'd love to have delivered that in its entirety. It's a poem you can really bring to life and emphasise on certain parts throughout it. If you don't, you're as well as not bothering. It really is. It's probably, for me, it is the finest Burns poem ever written. It really is. Ladies and gentlemen, the great man himself wrote many. He really did. Many poems, many songs. And he was born the 25th of January 1759 into poverty and hardship in Alloway in Ayrshire. And as every poor man's son, he should have been marched off to become an underling about a neighbouring farmhouse. But his father's own family had been much scattered by misfortune. It was therefore his dearest wish to keep him under his watchful eye till he could learn the difference between good and evil. And this he did till his dying day. Robert's father contracted a lingering illness, William Burns, and he, well, on his deathbed, turned, and his last words were directed at young Robert, where he said, "It's for you I fret for." Sadly, he slipped away. Burns then became, Robert Burns that is, became the head of the family and had to look after his mother and some of the younger siblings. They moved around from farm to farm around Ayrshire and the neighbouring areas, trying to make a living. Some farms were more successful than others, and he often found himself having to find other ways of making money to subsidise the farm income. And this it was that he had his first volume of works published, the Kilmarnock edition. The Kilmarnock edition sold 612 copies in just a matter of days, at a time when, let's face it, there were no bookstores or Amazon, you know, Kindles where you could download all this stuff now. He did it by word of mouth and good old publishing methods. 612 copies in days, and overnight had become famous and suddenly was as important at any social gathering as the roof was in the building. And for a young country lad, that was something special. And it also attracted the attention of the fairer sex. Yep. He was very smitten by very many of the local young ladies. He had 13 children by 5 different women. And that's only the ones that we know about. We suspect, genuinely suspect there were more, but 13 are legally recorded. 6 of them by one woman called Jean Armour. Out of all the women he courted, she was the only one he truly ever loved. They met at a wedding, a penny fee wedding, when his dog Louis jumped between them. Jean was very much put out by that. All Robert could say was, I wish I could find a lassie who'd love me as much as my dog did. She blushed, and from that moment on, they wanted to be married, but he was still in trouble with the church on account of a misbegotten child by another woman called Bess Peyton. Her father sent her off to Glasgow, Paisley, just on the other side of Glasgow, to marry a weaver, which incensed Robert. He tried everything to forget her. He was drinking, rioting, he was raking the streets, he was courting other women. He even then at one point tried to win her father over because her father was a master mason in every sense of the word. He even joined the masons himself to try and show he was a fit and proper man to be wed with his daughter, but he was having none of it, was old Armour. But he went to try for his second volume of works in Edinburgh after being told that the printers were too busy printing the Bible to be bothered with a second volume of works. Before he went to Edinburgh, though, he had actually planned himself a safe passage on a sailing ship to Jamaica, where he had heard there was much money to be made on the sugar plantations, importing the sweet stuff back here. But he didn't go and join the slave trade. He remained here in Scotland. He hired a pony and went to Edinburgh, and he had that second volume of works published there. While he was there, he was enjoying meeting with the gentry of the day. He was, as I said earlier, he became famous, and everybody wanted their part of him. So wherever he went, they wanted him to come and speak at their dinner. They wanted him to come along and sing some of his songs at their dinners. And it was there that he would meet with some of the women as well. He was courting a woman, his Clarinda as it was called, while he was in Edinburgh. And while he was there, he received a telegram from his brother Gilbert, telling him that Jean Armour had been thrown into the street and all for the good old cause. So at the White Hart Inn in the Grassmarket, a pub still in existence today, he said his farewells to the capital and his Clarinda. He came back, he met with Jean, they settled down in Ellisland Farm, where I told you he wrote Tam O'Shanter and some of the finest works in the last 4 years of his life on the farm here. And they went on to have their children. He again found himself having to make other ways of making money, and he joined the excise trade. He became a taxman, the man we love to hate. He joined the tax collecting, and he would ride up to 30 miles a day collecting taxes, come back and meet with Jean. Jean would work the land through the day while he was away. He'd come back and meet with her, he'd settle down, the kids at night, he'd tend to the last labours of the day on the farm, and then he'd up and do it all over again. He moved out of the farm down into Dumfries itself, into the city, and he contracted himself a rheumatic fever, and he sadly became very ill. His doctor advised that it would be good for him to bathe in water from the Solway Firth, the river that flows through Dumfries. They brought the water inland into a tin or a steel bath, I would imagine at the time, and the bacteria that was growing in the water enhanced his condition quicker than anyone could ever have imagined. So on the 21st of July 1796, at the tender age of just 37 years old, Robert Burns slipped away, one of the darkest days in Scotland's history. And we can only marvel now what he might have achieved had he lived longer, but he crammed so much into 37 short years of life. As his cortege was weaving through the streets some 2 days later, Jean Armour, his beloved wife, was giving birth to their final son, Maxwell Burns, and sadly they never got to meet. And as the cortege weaved on up to St Michael's Churchyard, just across the road from where the house is today that he passed away in, there was a woman from the many deep on the sidewalks heard to shout, "Who'll be our poet now?" I've often wondered who that poet is, because there have been many. And there are Burns suppers held all around the world on the 25th of January for days before and after to commemorate the birth of the ploughman poet Robert Burns. I don't know another institution of man of which that can be said. I mean, let's face it, there are no Shakespeare suppers, there's no Dante dinners, Longfellow lunches, or Joyce junkets. They're all great men in their own right, but none revered in the same way that Burns is. But ladies and gentlemen, Burns is universally acclaimed
and he will always be remembered as the Bard of Caledonia. He was voted the greatest Scot of all times in the millennium. And the lasting fact I'm going to leave you with this evening on Robert Burns. They say if you discount figures of religion, that only Christopher Columbus has more statues worldwide than him. A phenomenal fact. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed yourself this evening. It's given me a great deal of pleasure to come and entertain you. One of the biggest compliments you can pay us is by coming here to visit us in our own country, and I thank you all for doing so. But you know you can pay us a bigger one when you all take the time, you head back to your respective countries, tell all your family and friends about this incredibly handsome young piper who met you at the castle, brought you here to entertain you, and hope that they come, but more importantly you come back again. Now, for the most serious part of this evening's proceedings, you do know you have the finest travel director in the whole of Trafalgar organisation, don't you? Exactly how Amy pays me to say that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am jesting with you. You have an absolute diamond. I know for a fact Amy will have looked after you this far, and she'll continue to do so on your journey as that takes you on from here. Now, if she doesn't, lift the phone, call me, and I'll sort her out next time I see you. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your trip. Thank you. Good night, God bless.